Okay, we're going to start on a restorative kind of range of circulation in the beginning for restorative yoga today. So I want you to sit on the bolster, and it could be towards a wall space because we'll need a wall space. But the most important part is you have a single fold blanket way at the back. Okay. Then you're going to sit on your bolster. It's very narrow. It's like you kind of have your feet on the side to begin. It's a little bit of a squat if you think of how you sit on a bolster this way. And you're going to slide to the very end of the bolster towards a rolled up blanket. Okay. The blankets, it's enough distance that when I lengthen my legs, it can rest onto the blanket, onto my calves or my ankles. But here's the important part. We're going to work on snugging a belt around your mid-thigh. So layer the belt across. You can buckle it up or already have it buckled. And then you're going to need this belt so that we can snug it up. And what's really important here is that you have your sandbag on the side or a bag of weight. But this is mid-thigh. Actually a little higher than mid-thigh so you can get out of it when it's time. So you don't have to do any magic tricks. Okay. All right, this is preparation to learn magic tricks, this class, I think. So you're going to sit at the very, very edge, more edge than you're used to. If you feel too close to a wall, you can scoot it all back. You'll find out. It's okay if your feet touch the wall because they'll slide out anyhow. So then I step my feet onto the other side. I'm touching the wall with my feet. What's really important is that your shoulder blades are going to hook on the bolster. So you have to scoop the shoulder blades, scoop under with the shoulder. So this upper part of your back is going to be right on the end of this bolster. Okay. So I like to step up on the roll, and then I kind of act like I'm diving back, but it's not that dynamic, I know. But when I put my knees into this bend position, and I tighten the belt again, so I want that snug. It doesn't have to be so snug I can't feel my legs anymore. That's not important. I don't want that. And I lower my head back and I feel the shoulder blades right at the hooking on the top of the bolster. So they kind of push and it feels like it's putting some pressure on my upper back, right? And my traps. Okay, now I want you to still feel those knees bending. If you feel like you're too far back, like your shoulder blades are on the top, take a little bit of a core workout and come back up and scoot back down. Try it again so you feel like, okay, I got my spine on my bolster. You might have to reset your clothing here. But when you lower on back, then get your sand. Okay. Don't focus on scooping or moving your tailbone the opposite way. I want you to feel more that it's scooped under a bit. So it'll be challenging for the tail operation. And then let the legs extend down. Okay. You could tighten up the belt again. I don't think it's that important as it is to add sand. So we'll add some weight on top of the front of the thighs. And then it might feel like, oh, I can scoot a little bit back, but I want you to still feel like your shoulder blades are kind of hooked up onto that bolster and that you can work the chest muscles to open. So the big part of this is finding expansive range so the chest feels a little more spacious so we can set up for breathing. Yeah, this worked out pretty good for me. I spent a lot of energy on the other side, and then when I lay back, I can kind of start to open up gradually. I still feel pretty much the bolster is under my blades, and I barely get my arms on the floor. Right, especially the upper arm, that's not touching the floor, just my elbows and out. If more of the arm flesh is touching them, that's okay. But focus on the feel of stretching your breathing muscles. Okay, so inhale, filtering the air in through the nose. Feel how the ribs expand. And exhale, centering and letting go. And measure the pace of the breath to the sense of just feeling that there's a quality to your breathing, a deep, slow in-breath. You might feel like it's reserved because you're pushing the ribs up and there's pressure in the lungs right now. So this is the most challenging way to breathe besides being upside down. So we're kind of setting the bar pretty high to begin. Scan the body for areas that you're clenching, which could be the feet, the calves, the buttocks. If you can let everything be supported by the props and the movement of your breath. So if it feels difficult to kind of spread the stretch of the breath in the ribs, that's okay. You'll eventually start to operate so that the lower abdomen moves slightly with the breath and releases back towards the core. Should feel like this whole front area is getting a defined stretch, but it's not overdone. You could be with it for several minutes without a problem. Arms are casual, laying by the sides. Take about another 5 breaths. Feel where your chin is gently lifting. Don't focus on pushing it down. Feel the chest open. Okay, now reaching the rib space up with the shoulders back. So clearly I'm using the bolster as a place, like a mark for my back to push into. But it's kind of tricky because you're laying on it, but what's going to be helping you press is the shoulder blades kind of hugging in towards the bolster. So if you have any kind of mystery tensions in your shoulders, your rotator cuff, this one can be very interesting. I find like, oh, something, a little bit of a scuffle in my rotator cuff, right? There's something not quite the same as the other side. So noticing maybe you have some differences. They'll pan out in a moment. Relax your feet. Don't force them to be a certain angle. Just let them be without being stepped on. Okay, now slide the sand away. I think we might be able to keep the belt. Let's just see how our balance is. Not that we have to do something crazy, but slide the feet in. Now, if your belt is really tight, you might want to walk your feet up a little bit and loosen it. Okay, so it's not bothering you. Now, step the feet down. And I want you to push down into your feet first. I know the neck is going to get a little bit of length here, so be cautious. Okay, so feet first. This lower area can take all the intensity. We just don't want to cram it into our neck. So feet pressing, and then you're going to lift up just a tad, just till you feel like you slide back. I want you to reach under with your dominant hand, and you're going to turn that bolster to horizontal across the back of your pelvis. A lot of glute strength to get there. And then slide a little bit downward so that you really are on the edge of that bolster at the base. And then we're going to lift up the feet. I would just tighten the belt down. I didn't expect we'd have this opportunity, but this is great. And then think through. So we got our belt around the legs. We're going to lift the legs up, tighten the belt down so you're not using a sandbag, but you're using the belt to keep that inversion basically toned. And this time you can make the blanket a little higher if you feel like you're kind of out of sorts. There's too much mobility in the neck. You could make the blanket to a quarter full. Yeah, I'm not so sure I want that. I'm definitely working on my upper neck area not having so much roundedness. So if I make more pressure, then I'm going to push my neck to more rounded position. So if you can tolerate it, do it. But if you can't, add that extra lift, right? With the blanket. So feel how the tailbone presses down into the bolster. Let the feet be neutral so they don't have to flex or point. They're just on the end of the leg pieces, okay? Make sure the belt is tight enough that you really can't push the knees apart very much. So it could be closer to the base of your thigh. Interlace your fingers. Turn the hands inside out towards the ceiling. Feel when the hands lift that the abdomen moves with the breath. Okay, feel the back of the pelvis. Once you start moving your upper body, there may be some changes in touch with the back on the floor, your upper back. So feel if you can kind of squirm so the ribs, like you're kind of wagging your ribs side to side. Squirm a little bit and then start to lay out the foundation of moving your arms slowly, please. No quick movements. Reach the arms back. My interlace of my fingers can be worked on. I could improve this. So I'm trying to push through my hands, turning inside out, and reach through the arm, the inside of my arm, the wrist. You feel the back of your head resting. If it doesn't feel supported, make the blanket higher under your head. Okay, now move the arms back towards the ceiling and then bend through the legs. Let's see what happens when we keep the legs in this belt for a moment. Arms open to the side, straight out from the chest. Knees go side to side. We're just going to get a feeling for how this manages the back muscles. You just kind of notice the position of the leg, the circuitry in the legs. And now you're going to unbuckle. And I want you to bring the right knee into your chest, let the left leg lengthen. Let the hands stay interlaced and switch the legs. So left leg is in, right leg down. I think the word lengthen is probably is a little bit too much. So just let the leg alternate. Whether you push through it or you let it rest to the blanket is really optional. Or if you don't like the blanket under your foot, you can push it away. Alternate for a couple more times on each side from here. Each time the knee moves in, just feel how the bolster is either supportive or not. If it's not enough, your job will be to move a little bit lower. So change sides one more time. You might need to move a little farther down the bolster. Okay, now when you bring the knees both up, you're going to take a ball. Okay, make sure that you really are on that bolster with your pelvis, with the arch of the spine enhanced. Add the ball between the knees. And then when the arms are in cactus, elbows out, hands straight back, squeeze the ball. Make sure it's in a good spot so you can activate the legs to push into it. And then relax the grip. Inhale, belly relaxes. Exhale, squeeze the ball, push in. Inhale, relax the squeeze. Exhale, squeeze. Okay, find a positioning of holding the ball that's kind of moderate. Just lightly hold on to it. It's an interesting idea, right? Instead of using your hands to hold it, it's different using the leg, kind of muscular positioning. You want to find some balance to support your lower back. Okay, so let the knees go side to side like we did with the belt around, but no belt this time on the legs. And just kind of feel how the waist also gets a stretch. So when my knees tilt over, I decide how far over I go depending on how comfortable I am stretching my waist. So reach through the torso gently. It's only using the props to support you. You don't need to do more. You can just let the direction happen side to side. And part of it's trusting the props, kind of like trust the process, right? Trust the props. Okay, now next time you come across to the right or left, you're going to do one more time on each side, one more cross over. Okay, now feel when you center, shoulders back. Remember when we had the bolster under, you kind of were able to keep this rib span broad. So when you release the position with the ball, I want us to take our belt and let's go for brain float. Let's let the left leg lower down. Okay, so the ribs broaden. This will be interesting with the rib process. And connect the belt so that you can, will be only one more snap, I guess. Okay, you'll make the belt loop so it's really, really big. Okay, left leg is stretching down. It's actually just resting. Now, part of that, the process of this one is that lower leg, it is gradually releasing. So maybe the idea of stretching and pushing is not a great one. You just want to let it go and then add sand to the top of the left side first. So remember these parts that we use the sand on, we're using the sand purposely to release, which might take time. Okay, now it's going to be a collective challenge here to scoop up my foot. Okay, so now as I have the position of the belt, so I'm really working on a little bit of calf stretch, a little yanking on the belt, because I like that excitement of feeling my calf. And then I'm going to slide the belt to the back of my head, right? So it's on the back of my head. I'm going to tighten it down and hold the belt behind my head so nothing feels like it's uncomfortable in my neck. So I hold if I tighten, and then I decide, usually that verticality is a nice insight into the circulation kind of drain, right, in the lymph, which is your cleanup crew in the body. So we're letting the cleanup crew get working here in these inversions. And then let the movement of the torso now, you can even look at that movement that it spans open and then it centers straight down. Spans open and releases. So it's a little bit of a dynamic balloon. Doesn't pop. So, maybe shimmy your shoulders a little bit, movement in that back landscape until you can refine the position. This is a good one. We've done it before. I know some of you have many times, but it's nice to visit the position and then take up residence for a couple minutes in it and be very clear that that lower leg is resting and the ankle might pivot. So use the blanket if you are using it to kind of push down into it so that it holds the position so it doesn't swerve side to side. It just anchors the leg. Resting the eyes and a little bit of the brain at rest. Feeling the motion of the foot or the head, right? So they both are operating on creating that wave of circulation in the back line. But I find what I study is the front area, right? The breathing apparatus. I try to bring some focus to that. It kind of gets me in the moment, in the present. Okay, and so if you're getting kind of caught up on the hamstring, it's maybe feeling, right? Especially at the mid center of the right leg. It could be many areas, huh? Okay, reach back. Actually, first move the sand. I would just move it onto your belly. This is kind of an easy approach. And then you'll hold on to the back of your head and bring the left foot up. And then lower the right leg down. Okay, you might need the belt to be looser or tighter on the second side. You kind of can't expect exactly the same leg. Yeah, this leg has a different story probably, and this is a good time to find out. So the sand goes on the front of the right thigh if you haven't already. And adjust it so that it feels like it can stay. If it's too low, it might fall off. Gotta kind of meet the hip flexor as well. And then when that leg is elevated, well, it doesn't have to do much, right? The belt holds it. If it's too stressful, loosen it up. If again, it's way too stressful just to have it around your head, hold the belt with the hands. Okay, you choose. Okay, now feeling where the head leans back into the belt. Your arms could be spreading open the chest by just relaxing out and centering, breathing, resetting. Very simple process today. This restorative kind of compilation is specifically kind of to reset. So it's simple alignment of a classic sequence to get the chest openers, the thoracic movement, and the beginning to these inversions. Okay, now do a final scan on this side of just the noticer. You're going to be the noticer of yourself, I'm assuming. Not so much the screen, right? So much you. So if your right leg is just naturally, it rolls out, you know, feel if you can let the right foot flex. So that probably brings the toes up a bit. And like you're pushing, if you're lucky, you could touch a wall on this one. That would be the primo variation on this one. It's just tricky to get all that set up, but you know, feel how the hips change when you flex the foot. You kind of reset. The left hip might release a little bit down. The left foot clearly is flexing. Okay, now slide the sand away. I think we should put our sand over on the left side of our space. We'll need it pretty soon. Keep it over there. If you got to move your sand around, you got to find good spots for it. So I'm going to take the belt, use my hands to slide it, and then hold onto the belt with your right hand, still on the left foot, and cross the left leg to the right, left arm open. This blanket set is too low. You can always curl it up a little higher. This is a good challenge to get our cervical spine, you know, a little bit back and lengthen it out versus round it. So this is an easy way to tolerate that, I think. When you're standing upright, it's pretty tricky. Okay, now feel how the crossover, after a minute, it can get intense. So I want you to bend the left knee. Feel that hook of the knee bending. Okay, and then move it back up center. Bring the right foot up into the belt. Swap it. Left foot comes down. Hasn't been on the blanket for a bit. So you'll hold the belt with the left hand and cross the right leg over. Yeah, feel the chest gently open. Feel the circulation through that right hip. breathing. Keep it simple with the angle on the hip, right? Remember, it's resetting. We have kind of a general idea of where things could move to help things open up. We're generalists with this. Okay, bend to the right knee. Okay, now if you're getting a feel of kind of the lattice work, some of these side bands or even the inner land of the leg is, I don't know, it's kind of murky territory. It feels like there's cobwebs, you know, it's definitely needs to get cleared up here, a little spring cleaning. So when you bend to that right leg, and you're going to lift up the left leg one last time, push the feet wide into Upavista. This is a Viparita Upavista Konasana, right? It's inverted Upavista. So feel the feet push out. Now, if the feet push, I suppose it's also leg push too, but the pelvis just centers. That's kind of a vulnerable position, but you're in a pretty comfy space for that. So you can get a feel if the legs move a little forward, if they stay right centered. They're not going to go overhead. It's not the goal. It's not the goal to go down to the floor with them either. It's to be upside down. Okay. Now bend through the legs. Okay. Feel if the knees are kind of aiming towards your shoulders, towards them. They're not going to touch them, but you'll use that position of bending to benefit your ability to grab the belt. Slide the feet together and then slide off the belt, and let's go right into side sage. Okay, so I want you to actually give your body a bit of it side to side with the knees. If you use a ball for this one, bring that over to the left side as well. And then feel when you shift your ribs to the left. So it's not just the knees that go, it's also your arms have to go left to help you shift. And then you're going to lower down to the other side of the bolster, get the blanket that's at the base, and then unroll that. Yeah, I'm a fan of if since this is kind of a refining session, it's like really deeper, slower work. I'm going to keep my blanket on my bolster. If you have a bolster roll, right? If you're one of those round bolsters, you could use that instead of this blanket. If you don't have a round bolster around, then don't worry about it. Okay. And you don't have to use a blanket on your bolster. It might be too much. So if you don't like this too much of a thing, you can put your two blankets on the other side. Okay. And make sure you got lots of room to stretch it out. So I'm going to move my ball to the inside of the right leg, but this one is pretty stretchy. So you just kind of never know how your ribs are going to respond. You're going to lean into your left side. Okay. Now the frontal rib span, right? Rib intersection, the frontal rib span. This is probably, it seems more mobile, I think, for most of us because it's in the front. But the side area, you can really kind of stretch it around because it connects to your back, of course. And then I'll add my sand and my left knee scoops up. Now this blanket situation on my block on the other side is predictably firm, which is kind of nice here. Okay, so I'm going to turn my sandbag across horizontal because I don't think it's dependable if it's on the side for me right now. And then as I stretch over, I can use a block on the other side. And you don't have to. You might go, I don't want the block. I want to kind of hold onto my blanket. And then just work there. Now the ribs are probably feeling, especially at the left side rib span, hooking into your lats. That's a little challenge there. So I'm going to work on this openness in my ribs versus rolling down like this. Right? Some of you might like your head right centered, the side of your head like your ear pushing. But today I'm going to work more on this openness. Okay, now the block only has a couple settings, doesn't it? So if this is not enough height for your hand, like if your shoulder is really feels like it's in pain, then you got to get out with your arm. This doesn't, not required. If this hurts your shoulder, it's not open enough, then let it open here to open to the ceiling or down by the side. You might be more open in your ribs than your shoulder. Okay, now pinning down into the props, even if it feels like it's kind of etching into your blade, the left blade, it's just tight, kind of snagged up in there. Breathe. It's not just the pose, right? It's the breath in the pose. Poses have to breathe. If you're uncomfortable in one area of the body, little things can help, like my left knee closer to my bolster helped me in my ribs. You could even have the knees together. You could stack the legs. If it's too much rib work, you can have the legs in a fetal position because it's kind of intense. I like to stretch the front of the right thigh a bit. So take the final few moments. If you're going to kind of turn even more towards the ceiling, be sure that your head is supported. You're not holding it with your neck too much. You're letting your head relax. Okay, now we're going to shift between sides and actually do Supta Baddha Konasana. So I want you to first move the sand. Okay. Roll even the ribs and the shoulder to the left and then come up, make these movements slow. Okay. Now we'll take our blocks, they'll be down by the feet. And I want you to have one blanket at the base. This is probably important. You roll this up a little bit. It doesn't have to be a perfect roll. It's just, you don't want it too flat. It's going to flatten out, anyway, but roll it a little bit. And then we'll turn the bolster up on top, flip the blanket that's on top across horizontal. Remember, these things don't have to be perfect little measurements, although it's hard not to, I know. So you got to set up, you got a little ramp, a spine ramp. Turn to the feet, spin around a little bit, have the ball nearby, and now you're going to set up so your feet are together, your knees are out. You could use your belt if you want to really do the full deal. You can grab your belt. It's probably buckled up, bring it over your head, around your ribs, slide it across the top of your feet because your feet are together for Baddha Konasana. And then I'm going to slide the belt buckle close to my hip, scoot the belt so it's around the very below my spine, right? It's below my sacrum. It's at the eyebrows of the buttocks. We'll find a name for that someday. And then we'll lower down and have the ball nearby. This is critical today. Have the ball near for this one. You don't have to use the belt. You can still come into the same pose without a belt. It calms the nervous system to have the belt. That's one of the reasons we use it. It's pressure on the skin. Yeah, and your knees might be too high. You might go, okay, I'll go a little lower. Okay, you can always move the blocks really far out so they're just touching the outer band of the knee. Okay, you could scoot your feet farther down. So you really feel the stretch on the adductors. Again, that lymph focus, the cleanup group, right? This is a big deal in the lymph drainage. Lots of lymph nodes in these adductor line, in the groins. So I try to squirm a little bit so my lower back, I can feel the natural arch. Okay, cross the right arm over the chest, left hand holds the right arm. It doesn't have to hold an elbow or form. It can hold wherever it feels okay for your shoulder to respond. Okay, feel the weight of your head finally resting. Change the arm side, be as focused on the second side as you were the first, feeling how you hold on to it with that right hand to the left arm now. You know, and you might notice, oh, my habit on this side is to be higher on the arm. Maybe there's some protective experiences, right? You're working through. You just kind of, it's interesting to compare the sides from time to time and just feel maybe the side I was onto the elbow more than this side, because imagine one shoulder's different than the other. Little nooks and crannies in there. Nooks and cobwebs. Cobwebs in the nooks. The inner thighs may adapt and feel like they're a little more competent for the stretch. They may be shaking. So if your thighs are, this is too much stretch, make the blocks higher. Don't stress it out. If you're not using the belt, you have a little more leeway because you can just bring the knees together. The belt kind of reinforces the sensation. Okay, now release the touch, unbuckle if you've got the belt so it's easy to get out. Then step the left foot up towards the left sitting bone. Right foot hooks up to the left knee. Ball to the outer left hip. And then this is a quick review of things we've done, huh? Lean to the left with the left thigh. So the ball is really important, I think, on this one. It's better than a block because it's a responsive surface. So you won't have something, you know, pushing into your skin that's not cushy. You want something that's cushy on your skin. Okay, left hand holds the right knee. And then when you hold on to it, feel that right hip stretching. Okay, feel how the waist centers. Breathing. Now, if the right leg almost kind of lengthens, you want to keep it in a good bend. Don't want to try to do any kind of straightening of the right leg on this one. So use the hook of to the leg. Even if the leg kind of steps closer to the floor, that's okay. I mean, that's what used to be taught. This is a little more restorative way with the ball. Yeah, we used to do more of that, like we just step right into it. But we want to take a little consideration of our sacroiliac joint here. Okay, release the hold. Uncross the right foot from left. Left foot now crosses to right knee. Place the ball besides the right upper outer thigh. And then I kind of push it in and lean the body weight to that ball. So my right foot, I'm on the side of my bottom foot. My right hand holds onto the knee. And actually, my first gesture is I hold the knee and I kind of pull it towards my right side of it. So I think as you mature in the practice, which is evolving as you age, right, you're going to find that you need to be likely a little bit more forgiving and kind of gracious with your body as it changes and noticing what might feel really good. Some gentle poses. How can you be gentle? Gentle is the new advanced. Okay, so feel how the spine centers. Your left hand could be anywhere. It could be on your ribs, feeling the breath to make sure you're breathing. Because it might be held in some of these poses where the body feels stiff in some parts. And you're feeling where the chest is centered, right? So we're not rolling to the right. Well, soon we will be, almost. And so feel when you let go of that knee and you're coming into side sage on the right hip. So we're gonna uncross. And I use the block on the left side. So all I do is see if I can make this an easy transition. Move my belt away, roll right, okay? I'm tempted to just hug my bolster and lay on it, but I'll do the right thing. Okay, so turn the blanket and the bolster. Yeah, actually could be pretty easy peasy, huh? Block, behind, block, under the blanket. This is probably a little too high of a blanket. I don't need it rolled up that high, but you might like it. Okay. And then the ball on the inside of the left leg and the sand. So if you're not really seeing where this right leg is, I recognize you can't see it. So you're gonna have the legs in more of this kind of leaping position. You're lying on the ground in a leap, a lying heap. Okay. A heap leap. So move the right thigh closer to the bolster. So it's really as close as it could be. It's not on top of it. Now, when I lie into my side, I'm going to use the sand on the side of that left thigh. Okay, and stretch over. So feel where the waist is lengthening. Okay, feel where the spine has some reach. Your head leans into the blanket. Okay, now this side, I feel a little bit more comfortable with laying my right side of my neck this way, but last side I was a little more this way. So you're probably going to need to find a way where you're almost balanced as far as you can sense in a degree of movement analysis, because you're the one that's in the body. So okay, well, let's see, how can I adjust? So I'm sort of what I remember, even though that memory was a little bit ago, right? What we did was a bit ago. But you're gonna feel how the waist, work on your muscle memory, right? That's important. Like, how can my muscle memory? My right muscle has to talk to my left muscles. Okay, whatever's left of my muscles. All right, so when you reach with that left arm, yeah, find what's comfortable. For some reason on this side, I want to roll on the side of my head, but I know better. I better do the same thing. So my left armpit chest feels like it's spacious, it's flexible, but the side sheath of my shoulder is not as much. So I'm working on, doesn't hurt, but it feels tense. So try to give yourself a good minute at least. So if you practice these outside of the practice time together, even if you're just standing around and you reach your arm up, and just notice how you can roll through releasing tension. Give it a try. Breathe with the ribs moving. How much air you get into the lungs is dependent on the movement of the ribs. Okay, now when you do start to shift out, we're going to be movement oriented here to go out of this. So I would just roll to your right rib cage. Like this is a stretch too, just rolling out of it. All right, rolling out is a stretch. Take the time or don't, but it's helpful. Now I'm going to ask you to just let the sand slide. We're going to be setting up at the wall space for our seated series. So I want you to turn so that you'll get a hold of your blankets. I'm not sure how many you're going to want to use here. but you don't need a bolster. Don't use it for this. Okay, try it without. So let's have our blocks. They can be kind of backyard here. We don't need them, but we do need a blanket situation going on. So I think you're going to be fine with one. I would unfold it so it's like a single fold, so it's pretty big that way. So it kind of fits a lot of you. Get to your wall space. You're going to love having a wall for the seated stuff. Now, sand goes near my left leg when I'm sitting towards the wall. But I'm going to have you move your blanket so when you sit on it, right, it depends on your length because you're probably taller than me. So you're going to be a little farther away from the wall. So what I'm going to do is push my right foot into the wall, make the leg straight. I know you think these things are important, but who knows what's going to happen. So it's good to get these anchors in your alignment here. Just figure it out. So right foot to the wall, heel at the wall. Everyone has a different wall base. So you will maybe have a little bit of differences with how the ball of the foot touches, depending on what you have at the base of the wall. But in general, if I push into the wall and I kind of feel the connection into my hip, I've got to reset it all. So left foot towards the right thigh. It's a little cattywampus. This right hip is kind of, it bounces back in this pose. I know your hip's not bouncing, but the alignment is a little askew. So add a sandbag to the left thigh and you decide if you need a ball under this knee. If your knee is comfortable and not shaking and not feeling more stress in your thigh, don't use a ball. If it isn't, use a ball under the left leg. It might feel really good. Yeah, if I put the ball there, surprisingly, that side's not needing. Doesn't need the ball. Not helpful. Turn left, right hand to left knee, and then feel how the ribs move and rotate when you rotate with your right foot pushing into the wall. Right, toes are up. They better be. And then when you feel the spine, like a rod, right? It is, right? It's a rod in that back area. Hope that you don't have a rod, but if you do, right, you're working on up, up, up. And this kind of creates this valuable circulation in that awareness of that. The vine of the spine is probably a little more appealing to my mental comprehension, right, when I rotate. So feel that vine of the spine. Feel the weight into your seat. Okay, now that you set up here with the spine attention, okay, feel when you have the ribs lifting, and then you're going to let the left arm relax. So even if it's touching the ground, relax through the hand, lean to the right side. My right hand is still holding my left leg. Okay, now make sure the right foot toes are up. It might try to spin out a little bit. So you're going to lean down, and then you're going to lower that right elbow to that right leg. And you could do this just simple without a block. You could put a block under your elbow, but try with the leg. And the left arm could reach towards the wall. It might touch the wall. Some people will find that they can reach to the wall in this one. Not a requirement. If you're straining to do that, probably a bad move, right? So back up. It's nice to know there's always further to go. There's always hope, right? You might be able to get somewhere else in the pose someday. Okay, but feel just another few breaths. This is pretty intense. With the side, center through the hip. Good work. You can turn your head down to that right leg. Okay, now only a few more moments because I want you to avoid rounding and rounding. So you're going to lift up. Right in time, rounding happens. Now we're going to turn so that let's move our sand off and then turn to the wall. Kick the right foot up and cross the leg over the left leg. Or sorry, the left leg over the right leg. Got the sides connected now. Now this left knee might just kind of flop out. It's not flop, it's flop. Okay, so work your center of gravity. Now your abdomen, right? This abdominal area, the muscles, not just abdomen, but I have to hold my knee with my hands so I don't crank on my hip flexor. So I hold on firm. I give my sitting bones the rights to the pose. So you want to find that you're pushing into your right foot. Okay. Yeah, the right foot is a big deal on this one. Okay, now left hand back behind you. Hook the right elbow to the outside of the left leg. Now just the outside, so it could be close to the knee, it could be center thigh. It's going to be really individual on this one. And then rotate so the waist turns. Breathe. Okay, feel the movement of the rib cage. Feel the pressure of that right arm. Now that left knee is centered. If you've got anything going on digestively, this one you might have to change it a bit. You might have the knee a little bit more relaxed. You might have it closer in. Just accommodate to your body's needs, how it's doing today. If it's kind of uncomfortable, you can always hold the leg. And then just relax the movement of the torso. This I think I prefer. Now as we turn back forward, take a moment with the feet about hips distance apart, hold on to the knees, lift up the chest, inhale. Exhale, round the back, chin towards chest. Inhale, gently lift the chest, lift the chin, exhale, round. Inhale, chest up, and exhale. Slide the left foot to the wall, the right foot to the inside of the left thigh. Remember, pivot, but the pivoting is all dependent on the left foot still toes up. You can do all the pivoting you want, but you need to have that kind of baseline of the left leg. If it feels like it's hyperextending, you can sit on more height. That's one help. You can also put like a towel under the knee. So if you feel like this is just too much flexibility right now for your leg, you can always bring some more height on this side on your sitting bones. Okay. Sand on the right thigh, ball under the knee if you like. You choose. Hook the left hand to the right knee and turn to the right. Rotate. Feel how the spine is considering the movement of the breath. Feel how the torso turns. Feel the pressure of that left foot. Breathe. It only helps. Yeah, I sometimes let my right sitting bone dominate a lot right now. So I'm trying to put a little more weight into my left foot. So if I put more weight into my left foot and I feel like cramped up, I'm just going to push myself just a tiny bit away from, move my right knee a little farther back, just a small pinch of it. Feel the sitting bones space out. Okay, there we go. Now a little better. So you want to work on refining just those basics. Okay, and now you'll let the ribs lean to the left. You'll bring your left arm on the inside of that left leg. That's enough for most of us. Just tilt a little bit. This right side really feels the stretch. It's probably enough, but if you want to add some more, you can stretch the right arm over to the right side of the face. Yeah, you might find, wow, one side is a really different spaciousness in the waistline. So these are really interesting experiences, right? So it could be a lot of history with it in your body. Who knows? It could be things like old surgery and you've got more scar tissue one side and now it's affecting how your waist stretches. And it's part of the process, right? So trust that you might turn your head towards the left leg and then try to get that arm to stretch a little further. to the wall. It's there, the wall is there. Okay, right arm reaches back. You don't have to come all the way to upright, but feel when you lift up and then you turn towards the wall. Okay, sand goes away. And then we'll turn so that we shift our weight. Sitting bone across from sitting bone. Right leg over left. Push into your left foot, toes up. Okay, and feel how the waist, and this is the most important part, right? Finding the right foot, stepping down. And then as you turn back to that right side, the left arm hooks to the outside of the right leg, and you rotate. Okay, so feel, we're gonna kind of loosen it up in just a few moments with hands, knees, cat, cow, you know, that type of work, up dog, and so forth. So get a few moments here of wringing it out in the torso. I know, digestive tract and all, huh? Breathing slowly is challenging on both the in and the out breath on a twist. Okay, now as you shift, now this is not, we're not doing this. This is a no-no when you lean into it. You want to try to sit up. So if it's hard for you to sit up, you might sit on more blankets or a bolster. That's okay. Okay, now when you turn back forward, hold onto the knee, try to feel the ribs move center. Okay, now uncross, feet slide in. Okay, we're going to turn so that we face away from our wall. Okay, we're going to shift so that blanket folds up if it's not already folded. Place it below your knees. If you don't need a blanket under your knees, don't use it. If you decide, I don't need a blanket on a carpet, don't want it, use it. If it feels comfy, use it. So spread out the fingers. The feet touch the wall. The spine is in a natural, it's naturally arching and not quite flexing, huh? So feel as you round your back into cat pose, chin towards chest. Inhale, feel how the chest, but also the hips move back. And really refine this movement. It's been some time since we were in this type of shape here. It's probably before class or some other time, but when you feel this chest moving, right, see if you can really work with the hips movement to stretch between the vertebrae. Inhale, arch. Exhale, round, chin towards chest. Now reach the hips towards the feet. Take the hands out a little wider. So you're stretching mildly through the arms and the chest. Maybe the head touches down. Okay, now feet push into the wall, and you're going to round your back when your feet push into the wall and then move forward to up dog. So stretch up with the chest, reach your chin up towards the sky. Great, and then center the hips, back to table, but keep moving. So it's an alternating chest opener, arms spreading out on the mat, and then come forward, keep it in motion. I know this is great for the sinuses, so keep the movement. Inhale, chest up. Exhale, shift back into the hips. Because you're alternating between neutral, a mild inversion, and then back up to a chest opener, all within a few seconds. Okay, now once you kind of feel the evidence of movement, right? See if you can shift so that when you move forward into the upward dog variation here with the chest centered and up, come back to table. Okay, now you're going to walk the hands into the inside of the mat, toes under, lift the knees, and then center your feet so your heels are either a little bit up at the wall at the baseboard, or they're going to lower down towards the floor, right next to the wall. I know, yowza calves, huh? So stretch the chest appropriately, just the right amount. If you're feeling this is too much, you step your feet wider, right? The feet go out farther apart. Okay, now lift up the heels. If your heels are already lifted, you're already on the way, aren't you? Okay, if you're already using the wall to set them up. Now I want you to step the right foot forward and get some blocks. It might take you time to get here, to step the right foot forward. Everyone has a different kind of passage of capacity, okay, to get here. Whatever that means, capacity passage. Doesn't really, I'm not very understand it. Okay, so feel how the step of the foot is. The right foot is parallel. Now, when I lift up my chest and stretch it forward, I try to get the right side of my torso towards the right leg. So I want these to meet closer versus farther apart. So chest forward, inhale, exhale, straighten the right leg, and chest just leans down. It kind of hangs off of the spine. Okay, inhale, lunge. Your left heel could be up, it could be on the floor or up against the wall, and extend. I kind of like to play with it to kind of feel. So when I lean into my lunge, my heel almost certainly is up. It's not going to be down. But when I lean back, the heel lowers a little bit easier. Okay, so feel how your right knee is moving forward now, and then alternating the movement back and forward. Okay, now stay with the leg lengthening. Try to keep the thigh bone sturdy so that the thigh pulls up on the quadricep, like you're sucking up your quad section. Okay, now as you reach the chest centered, calf stretch. Oh, so good. This is a great way to stretch our calves. Yeah, both calves get a little different stretch, don't they, on this? It's not quite the same on the front leg. It's just not. Now, if you're a little bit back and forth with your hips, balancing, feel that this is kind of the way to learn balance, right? Having a wide stance and then trying to step into one of the legs. So step the left foot to the right, taking the feet about hips distance, not much wider. And then feel if you can fold into your legs with the ribs towards the thighs and let your head tilt straight down towards the floor, right on down, crown of the head towards the ground. Instead of pushing your head closer to your legs, just trust. Head dangles from the spine. You can hold the legs, you can hold your elbows. Make sure your wrists feel comfortable. So whichever version, whether it's dangle, clutching, or grasping the legs. Let your head nod a little from side to side. Really let the skin cells in the face get some stretch here. They're usually the other way, right? So let the face have the opposite stretch. We got to stretch our face too. Yeah, frowning upside down feels kind of funny. Okay, now bend the knees and grab onto the blocks. Step the right foot back. You might have to bring your feet back together, then step the right foot. Whew, I can feel it up into my hip, just trying to maneuver. So lunge into that left leg. Now feel if your weight is balancing. Now my back heel is up. Okay, so you choose. I want you to get a feel of reaching. We're also going to do one low lunge today. So I want you to feel when you move forward and back that you do have flexibility in your feet. Don't forget your feet here. It's not just leg stretching. It's also the movement tracking in my feet. You don't want to be too close to the wall, huh? Lean and lunge. Knees just over the ankle. Caution when you step the left foot down and you lunge forward. You might go slower than I am. And then tilt back so the back of the leg lengthens. And take a moment. We're going to do one more reach with this left side, but then we're going to lower the right knee down to the blanket or the floor firmly, and then feel that stretch in the front of the back thigh. Take a moment here. Feel where the hip anchors. Your blocks could be just where they ended up before, but sometimes we want to stretch them farther forward, sometimes closer and back towards the wall. Yeah, I find that maybe I can do this kind of a thing, hands on my leg to top off the pose, but then my right thigh is kind of going back into tightening. So it's probably better off for some of us to scoot the left foot forward parallel and just really work on that right hip flexor stretching. You know, it's challenging not to kind of grip the buttock on that side, but try to feel the length of the front of the leg. Okay, now shift back carefully into the knee and then switch the lunge. So right foot goes forward, left foot stays back. Just keep that left thigh, the front of the thigh lengthening. Okay. And give it a few more moments. We're going to counter this with a bridge pose next. So I want you to maintain that length through that right knee moving forward, the hip flexor. Okay, since you're kind of you're the pose manager here. So be careful now. I feel both, kind of front and back of my left thigh. It's not just one segment. Okay, so when you come back, shift. So you got two blocks. Okay, so I'm going to shift. So I'm going to turn and have my back on the ground. Actually, let's see. We'll have maybe a blanket, just a slight blanket ledge. So one single fold. Put your bolster on the side. Actually, let's put it on at the base of the wall. This final set will be kind of interesting. So I want you to put your feet on the bolster, but what we're going to do is we'll go right into bridge. So I want you to have it so you scoot back so you can lengthen your legs. You have a little bend in the knees though because of the bolster. But I want to make sure that your feet can touch the wall, the bottoms of the feet. Okay, so measure that first. Then bring the knees back to their pointy position towards the slanted to the ceiling. Take a block set. Okay. Push into your feet and lift up the hips. That was meant to be push into 2 feet, huh? Block set in, and then I let the legs stretch straight down to the wall side push. Shoulders in, chest open. Okay, so you might find that the block setting is just too low for you. You want more, but I think this one's pretty beneficial so I can get my shoulders down and in. Oh, sure, you could have the blocks a little bit higher, but that's kind of a little bit of a back challenge. Like, trying to get that lift. You could try for it. You have to get closer to the wall probably. Get a little more height. And sometimes it's just not meant to be. You can stack them flat, so they're 2 flat blocks under the back of your pelvis. Measure them so they're close on top of one another there. And then push the feet to the wall. A little bit more lift, okay? Likely your back will be fine if you get the ribs to stretch open. So for most of us, our back claims that it's destroyed or it's hurting, but a lot of that is this front space is just rolled in and rounded. So you got to find balance on both sides. Now, this gets a little more lung intensity when I'm higher on my hips, but if it hurts you, keep it lower. So it's 2 blocks side to side. The second setting is fine. Arms are down towards the feet. I know you can't hold your feet on this one. No rolling of the neck. Let's take a few more moments, centering the hips. Remember, if you're feeling like the back is challenged, Let the ribs move with the breath. Move the shoulders back and down. Open the chest. Even if your hands slide out a little bit. Nice work. Bend the knees, walk the feet in. Let's take a final rotation. So we'll lift up our hips, slide the blocks out. No blocks. Spine lowers. Easy all the way, catch it through the very base of the spine. Blanket goes up a little bit on this one, so you want to fold it one more. Kick the bolster to the right side of your mat and cross the right leg, the right leg bend, cross the left leg to the bolster. But the right knee needs to bend on this one so that there's a nice comfort in the lower back. Okay, you can add the ball to the sacrum area or down to the glutes. That's fine too. It's either wherever it holds, right? Wherever it kind of touches and squeezes, squishes in there and holds. Stand on the side of the left thigh and reach the left arm open. Let your head roll to the left. Just master that movement of breath in this final set. We got 3 poses to complete, just 2 hip ones and 1 inversion. So knowing that can be nice too, just experiencing the very subtle flush of the body, breathing. You know, and there's always further to go on any of these joints, right, in the hip especially. Feel if that right hand can reach to the sand or just below towards the knee. And just kind of feel that final crossover on the left hip. Slide the sand away, let it drop. And knees might need to squeeze into your chest. You kind of have to respond to your body's request. So some of us will put our feet on the floor and kind of feel the nutation of the pelvis. I kind of like that, just feel it kind of rock and the back press. My abdominal area kind of feels a little squeeze. Some of us squeeze the knees in. I like to try to get the pelvic floor to work differently than pulling. Right? This creates a little bit of sensation of control. So I'm going to scoot myself a little to the right side, then swing the right leg to the bolster on the left side of me. And the ball, perhaps, not everyone will use it, I realize, but I like to have that anchor. Add your sand to the outer right leg, open the chest to the right, and then feeling how the body weight centers and the chest turns. Breathing. You know, feel that slow response internally. It's pretty slow, right? It's not like a fast response to you pushing a button. It's the body resetting and replenishing. And give that a few moments here, replenishing into the hip, into the lower back quadrant. Now left hand to the right leg, press, turn the ribs to the ceiling. Okay, slide the ball away and then fine tune it. So you're going to take the sand and then I would slide it to the wall, just kind of nudge it that direction. Roll left, lift your spine and then take, well, actually, you don't have to lift it that high. Take the bolster to the wall, slide your blankie in, and then we'll take legs up and see if you can sit your seat, tush to wall, sitting bone closely, right, as close as they'll get. You might be on the edge, but when you swing the legs up the wall, feel where the waist has a inverted position just at the torso, pelvic torso branch, right? So it's a lower division. And for most of us, that's an area to really work with pelvic floor, lower abdominal area to support when you move your sand onto your feet. It's pointless to push my pant leg to the ankle because I just don't think it's going to stick when you're upside down. Okay, so the back of the pelvis has a lift and a natural arch. And clearly this is so good, right, for pelvic floor. It's the opposite of prolapse, which means everything kind of drops down, which is gravities and bodies. Okay, so feel where the pelvis is centered. Let go. Just kind of let yourself go into the shape instead of kind of going against it. Nice to just go. Because you might have things you try to tighten up and you don't realize it until you really feel yourself. And how often do we feel ourself? Feel from the inside. So shoulders are just resting, chest is open, hands are either a cactus. I like them to be a little lower than the level of my heart to let the heart rate lower and slower. And returning the entire inner dynamic from upside down to a place of balance. So breathing slow. And I feel from inner to outer sheath. Try to let the shoulders continue their work of resting back and gently nudging them to open the chest. So it's this dynamic of swallowing, relaxing the throat spectrum, the movement of the ribs. It's this whole concert right inside the body that's blending with the movement of breathing. Now nudge the knee awareness to bending. Shift the feet away from the wall. Bending the knees a little deeper, but caution for the knee joint, right? You want to feel the flesh of the leg move to the ribs. And then that sandbag resistance is greater for the breath, right? Slide the sand or drop it overhead. That's safe for some of us. And roll to the right or the left. Kind of take a moment, let the knees squeeze in. Massage the kidney area here. This is a good kidney massage. And roll to the side, squeeze the knees in towards the arms, roll. The more tucked in you get, right, the better the coming up is for most of us. You're gonna really trust that cannonball effect here. So knees are out, spine is gently in its natural lift, right? This is meant to be, right? Your spine is lifting, the shoulders are centered back, maybe to touch a wall. And make sure that low back is away from the wall. So there's a natural curve in the lower back. Lift the hands, gently nudging your head down to bow into your heart center, surrendering here. Uniting our breath in, breathing